He has been in Drupal for over a decade. He's the director at Freely Give and the lead of the Drupal AI initiative. With a background that ranges from physics to user experience, he brings in a rare blend of technical expertise. Please welcome James Abraham.
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me? Is this good? I've been doing this Drupal AI stuff for a while now, and it was particularly at DrupalCon in Singapore where I met a lot of people here. And what I just found was the Indian Drupal community was doing so much cool, innovative stuff. Like where when we were doing stuff in the early days with AI, it was a bit of a slog. Um, you were saying this thing about have I forgotten to leave? We actually, Free to Give tried to do a Drupal AI conference, like a thing, quite early days in the UK, and we created it. It failed miserably. The venue went bankrupt 2 weeks before, but I posted it on the hash Drupal UK, and I got a whole bunch of like 6 or 7 people did like a vomit emoji next to this event. We went to me and Marcus went to Dev Days Burgers, where a lot of this stuff happened, and I've got the T-shirt from there because I love this T-shirt. This T-shirt is a Drupal T-shirt, and it's the only T-shirt I've ever worn where strangers will stop me and compliment me on this. So, I'm wearing it all the time now. It is great, isn't it? They did a great job. DrupalCon burgers was amazing. But we had somebody, we showed these AI agents. We showed some agents that could take in a PDF, and Marcus had built these agents that would get a PDF for restaurants, create content types, migrate the code, set up a view, do everything. And somebody created a fake account on Drupal.org, came to one of our modules and wrote an issue that was just titled "bad," with a comment "bad." And the thing about should I left is I was speaking to a friend of mine who he got me into AI. There was a really close friend of mine I did physics with, and he was we had kids similar time, and he was on paternity leave, and he phoned me up and told me like I could build an app. Never done that before, but I can build an app now. And he told me about this ChatGPT. So we tried it with my wife. She's in HR, knows nothing about code, and we're like, "Can you build an app?" And we tried to see if in an hour she could go from idea to something. And it's not gonna be the next WhatsApp. It was an app that has a button, and when you press it, a hyena laughs. But the hardest part of building that 1-hour app was finding an MP3 file online that we could use with royalty free, because we were worried about that. So that was the hardest bit of it. The first money I made in AI was she used AI to help her write a VBA macro it was some HR software it was a 360 review, and it had a really terrible CSV export, and they had to manually move things around. It took them 3 days the previous year, and with me and her helped write this VBA macro, and she got Employee of the Month, and we won £150, and that was the start of our AI career. But this friend of mine said to me, like, "Why are you shocked? Like, this Drupal community is full of people that are using the same software like you for 20 years. They're not going to be the people who like new things." If it's a Bitcoin community, it's not shocking if they all suddenly move to AI. And I think that was a feeling of like, oh yeah, am I just stuck in my ways, or is there a reason why I still believe that Drupal is going to be a really important part of AI? That as Dries said in the recent Dries note, that we sort of accidentally be in a perfect place, a seat for AI. So through my talk, I'm going to tell you a bit about where we came from, what we did, and why we still really believe in Drupal AI, and why we think it's special compared to other approaches. And I'll revisit that question near the end. So this is me, co-founder of a tech agency called Freely Give. We started focusing on native Drupal CRM. So generally speaking, I haven't really been someone in the kind of making pretty sites world. So our things tend to be like, 80 people will be using our sites for 8 hours a day, as opposed to, thousands of people using it for 20 minutes at a time. So they're slightly different. And because CRM, that world, the benefit was a lot of the time automation. When AI came along, it just fit really nicely. I got a bit fed up with running a Drupal agency. I have a business partner who could take over, so I took a break, became a stay-at-home dad. AI hit. I went crazy. I got so obsessed. This talk. So key takeaways. I still feel that Drupal is surging forwards. The competition is getting harder than it was. When I gave these talks before, people were doing nothing apart from what we were doing in Drupal. But I still think we're surging forwards. I'm going to talk about why I think everyone should do everything with Drupal. And we're going to get a bit philosophical. Drupal creating brains. So who here would say they've got like a passing interest in any kind of philosophy in any way? Yeah, yeah. Okay, who's into like? Is anyone into like the kind of the weirder European-y continental style philosophy? Like, I don't know, like Descartes. Say we've got a couple of people. So well, it's not going to go into loads of depth, but we're going to get a little bit philosophical near the end. This is the AI module. So this is where it starts. For anyone who's not familiar with Drupal here, at its heart, Drupal is a content management system. You could see WordPress as a competitor or Joomla as a competitor. But Drupal is built in such a way with this concept of a site builder. And site builders is something that not many other communities or software has. And it is this kind of place, it's like a no-code thing for non-developers or sometimes developers to, through a UI, through configuration, build a lot of what makes Drupal Drupal without much code. So I remember once with Civi CRM, in the really early days, one of my first clients, we had to build a boxing website for it was a Muay Thai company, and they wanted to run events. And it took us about a day to get like a website set up, but you could pay for tickets, and it had the time that was open. And then he came to us and said, "Okay, that's great. You got the time that this event starts. Could you put the doors opening time?" And we looked at it, and we were like, I have no idea how we can do that. And the whole site took us a day. To get that door opening time, it took us another 2 days to figure out where on earth this page was built and how that thing was and how we could hack it in. Whereas with Drupal, you can build things by clicking around, adding fields. It's very, very flexible. And as a result, a lot of people like Free to Give use it as a more like a platform for building applications. And so at the start of what we did, we have this AI module, and the heart of it is an abstraction layer. So it means that when you build Drupal AI applications, if you build it on top of the abstraction layer, you can convert it to, it will work with all of the different providers that we support. And this is important. In the early days of Drupal AI, everyone who built anything would create their own little way of connecting with just OpenAI or Gemini or all these other ones. So when we could bring this together, it means that you had this kind of feeling of, okay, future, is safe for using in the future. The next stage was Drupal CMS agents. And so Drupal core now is when you download it and use it, there's not much to it. It doesn't really do anything. And usually people configure it for their clients. And the Drupal community wanted to make something that was closer to an actual finished product, that you could use it, download it, get out of the box, it works as a CMS system. And we started communicating with them later in the development of Drupal CMS with what we were doing with AI. And we created these Drupal CMS AI agents. And when people heard about us doing AI, what was happening is at the time, every new AI startup was just a wrapper around the OpenAI API. It wasn't doing anything, and it was just generating. It was basically all apps were just saving you having to copy and paste between ChatGPT and your app. And so when we released this, everyone was expecting us to create a spam creation agent that would just produce loads and loads of terrible blog posts en masse. And obviously, you physically can do that, but we went a bit further, and we were like, well, Drupal although it has a site building experience, there was a graph, which is people who use Drupal for a long time tend to fall in love with it. But at the beginning, people find it a little bit hard to get started. The UI is a little bit difficult to get going with it. So what if we could use AI to help that? And we built these chatbots that could support you using a Drupal site, so it's aimed at staff, really, or editors, but also could build you things. So if you're wanting to create a content type, maybe create an event, these agents would actually make that for you. Well, in 1.0, it was quite hard to build agents, but we've worked on making that a lot better. And now we have the ability to create so many agents that can do so many things in Drupal. And we think there's a couple of things we're doing, but it's going to hit a place of unbelievable, I'd say, exponential growth. I think some programmers here will correct me, and it will be quadratic probably. But there's a lot now that our agents can do. Some of them are off-the-shelf agents. Some of them you're going to have to build yourself. So here's a little one that's quite fun. In the UK, there's a lot of council websites, like local government websites, and they have to aim to have all their content at the reading age of like a 9-year-old. And that's very hard to do, actually. It's quite a hard skill to take quite complex information, usually to do with bins or potholes or something local, and bring it down to a reading age. And we have this agent that can use a system called the Fleisch Reading Score to evaluate how good it is. But there's a lot of analytics out there that will give you advice as a human. This doesn't just give you advice, but then it actually implements a change that you can then review. But from the beginning, at Freely Give, we strongly felt that this AI stuff is going to be big, and it's going to be bigger than we can handle. In the Drupal community, it tends to be that a lot of agencies want to become the commerce guys of commerce, or the commerce guys of the new thing. So when there's a way in which you can use Drupal, let's say mailing, CRM, commerce, maybe it's a new layout manager. Agencies tended to like to specialize and become the people who owned that problem space in Drupal. And then if you want to go to the best at doing commerce, there's lots of sites, pages that people do it, but commerce guys will be able to charge a premium because they're the best of it. And that works. But we felt with AI, that was never going to work. It was never going to be something one company could own. So the AI module from the beginning was a consortium of multiple people from different organizations. And that was great. But what we had was a series of people who were in organizations, whereas, I'm an owner of an agency. And so there was something about what I was able to do as an owner. I could hire people, I could choose my resources, where we could really dedicate a lot to pushing forwards the AI module. Whereas other people who were the initial maintainers, it depended on if their company allowed them, depending on, the market, what projects they're working on, etc. And we felt this needed to grow even bigger. And so when speaking to Dries and the DA, we created a Drupal AI initiative. And now there's an official page on Drupal about AI. And the AI initiative is a coming together of organizations where everyone is contributing both time and money. So everyone's paying to be part of it, to be an AI maker, but they're also dedicating some half a full-time developer or full-time developer, or in many cases more. In case of QED42 that's here, it's ginormous amounts of contribution, which has been great. And what we felt was we need actually not just people, but business leaders to really take this seriously and drive it forwards. So the Drupal AI initiative came along and it's grown. We had 5 founding companies and we're now to, I think it's almost 30 actually. That slide was, I think, now a bit out of date. The 1.2 branch of the AI module had 1,000 commits across 130 different authors, and downloads are accelerating. And so we needed the AI initiative to grow, to capture all of this energy. Freely Give was becoming an AI company. My business partner wasn't fully on board with that at the start. He thought AI was something that we would do, but I was like, no, we have to be an AI company. That's what we do now. And what happened actually is all our clients that were using us for standard Drupal work started getting excited by AI and suddenly found, there was a lot we could do to support them. So even on our more traditional clients that we've had for a while have started treating us more like an AI company. But I felt that this can't be Freely Give as the only AI company in the Drupal ecosystem. Every single Drupal company, every agency, every developer, I really think if they're going to survive, has to become an AI company. And we're seeing that more and more people who are very skeptical are catching up to it. So why Drupal? Well, I think one big thing we focused on was AI human collaboration. So I've been using Claude Code a lot and I've been loving it, but it's very scary because I ask it to do something, I see all this random stuff come along, and it just does things. And actually, with a lot of with weird prompt injection, if you're using browsing the internet, you can hide security issues inside pictures, and your Claude Code might just start doing random stuff, like start deleting things at random, etc. They've done some things to make it so you have to tell it what to do, but it's a bit scary. And what I find is that because Drupal targets a site builder, it targets non-developers to understand what's happening, to understand how to configure it, explains what those configuration means. It has a UI for all of those. It has ways of moderating things in the UI of Drupal. I felt like when you use these open source pure code agent frameworks, it's going to be very scary and tough for companies to trust those because you're going to have to rely on a developer. But a lot of the time, what I've found is to do prompts well, to do the AI bit well, you need to have really good domain knowledge. You need to really understand the clients, the problem space. In fact, in the early days of AI, I would go around, as a stay-at-home dad, hanging out with mums, and what I would find is if I spoke to someone and they had an engineering degree or physics degree, they would be telling me some clever way in which they were cynical about how AI gets things wrong and it can't even do math. And I would speak to these people who had a business degree, a psychology degree, an English literature degree, and they were telling me all the things that AI is doing in their life that is already making it better. And there is this thing there that to do well with AI, it's not exactly the same skill as what is good for engineering. There's a lot of overlap, the trial and error, the scientific way of doing it, but a lot of it is knowing language and how to communicate. And so I felt like for this AI stuff to work, it really needs to put a lot of power in the hands of non-developers, which I am a non-developer. So there's a little bit of I'm self-interested. I'm trying to help myself here. I want tools that I can use. And similarly with trustworthy governance, I think to do trustworthy governance, I think you're going to need people to understand it. And the people who understand it will be at the very furthest from the programmers. Have a friend who does loads of stuff with insurance. And really, to build an AI agentic system in insurance, you can't just be a programmer. You have to live, breathe insurance. You have to know every regulation in the world, every way in which things could play out. You have to be someone who is really far into using this stuff to do these agents well. And I think Drupal is a really great place for showing that off. Open source flexibility. Even now, every so often, I'll use an open source model hosted, and it feels like I'm doing something like almost illegal or scary because it feels like it's sudden this like weight goes along of I can type whatever I like and no one is spying on me. No one's going to ban me forever. I don't have to constantly think about it. It's like mine. And it suddenly occurred to me like, oh, that was how all my IT was before, that I had my own devices. I could do what I wanted with. I didn't have to worry about a ginormous American company spying on me. I had one thing where I tried to ask Copilot something, and it was just something about local politics. I was like trying to ask it, like, what do you think the local political people would think about this? But it was not allowed to talk about politics, apparently. So normally, if it says no, my natural thing is to try and ask the same question slightly differently. But it told me that I should respect its boundaries, stop gaslighting it, and then it ended the conversation with me. It was weird how angry my computer telling me off made me, like genuinely angry. But then I took a step back, and actually, this AI represented Microsoft, the most powerful organization in the world that controls everything I do. If they decided to ban me, I don't know, can I access Windows anymore? Can I really log into Office 365? Can I play games on Xbox? That fear of it is in theory possible that I accidentally type something into Copilot and my entire IT world is gone is scary. Now, they're not as ban happy as they used to be. Like Claude was awful at banning everyone for anything. They've relaxed that now. But I think that control and sovereignty is actually very important for AI. And then the community innovation. No one does open source, I think, quite like we do in the Drupal community. Most open source projects now are going to be like open core, or they are one big, massive American corporation who hate another one, and they're releasing this just to spite them. Like Meta has spent so much money on AI simply to hurt Google and Microsoft. They barely get anything out of it. And then same thing with like a lot of stuff that is in Apache. It was just like Yahoo investing it to spite Google. And so you have this thing where a lot of open source now is actually kind of owned by a couple of corporate interests, really. Or you'll get something like WordPress. I mean, I know they've had a lot of controversy, but like the core of it will be open source. But then the widgets and all the additions, actually you kind of have to pay for them all. Whereas what we have in Drupal is not just the core of what we do, but our whole ecosystem of extensions on Drupal.org are not just open source. We have a community ethos that they're supposed to work together. Like if you get 5 different modules that do the same thing, the community starts trying to encourage you to converge. It doesn't work perfectly. We sometimes do have 2 ways that have won out, and they're not never going to get together. But we try to do that. Whereas the WordPress community will be loads and loads of different plugins and widgets that do roughly the same thing, and you'll want one feature from that, one feature from that, and they won't work together. And I think this is something that makes AI very powerful, because AI can understand Drupal's architecture. It can understand what an entity is, because they tend to be something that humans can understand. It can see, it's already trained on all the Drupal modules, so it can see everything. I really like talking about Drupal AI and where we're going and all the kind of new stuff. So I had a plan for this talk today that was just going to go into loads and loads of specific tech geeky detail about where I think we're going to be in a couple of months' time. I showed it to some people. They've told me we should have something a little bit more of an intro to it first, but I'm going to do that in the contrib room, and we'll go into a lot of detail about all of these things. We're going to talk a bit about search, this Canvas AI page building stuff, and visual flow building, which I'm very passionate about, and you're going to see more detail from Shivin about his approach to this later, and a bit about AI migration. I definitely think this is the big, when we can get this right. I mean, we tried to do it a few times and it turned out to be a lot harder than we thought, but it's still the stuff we built. It's definitely the case that if you can get reduced migration by 50%, that is huge. Migrations are awful in Drupal. They're so painful. I mean, not just in Drupal, just generally, migrations are unpleasant because you're putting a lot of money to move nowhere. So if we could just reduce it by 50%, that would be amazing. I think we can easily do that. Obviously, the dream is you just ask AI to migrate something from WordPress into Drupal. It just happens. There's reasons why that was more complicated than we originally thought, but that's happening. We're going to talk a bit about MCP and its actions plus. So AI search. The basics of AI search is that it is semantic. It can understand the meaning of what you ask. Whereas a lot of the time, most search is just searching for the particular word. So we have this example here where you type in the word Italy. This is Umami. It's a simple demo site that a lot of people use. You type in Italy and it gives you no results. You then go to the AI chatbot and goes recipes inspired by Italy, and you find there is a deep Mediterranean quiche and a gluten-free pizza. And it's pretty obvious if you search for Italy in a recipe site that you'll want pizza to appear there. But actually, if the word Italy doesn't appear on that content type, it doesn't happen. Now, you can do things with your normal search stuff to like make synonyms so that every single time someone's searching for Italy, so do pizza, but you have to manually do that, and a lot of people don't. AI, it just works. But some people are a bit scared about this. AI's written this, and it can get things wrong. It can hallucinate. So some people are a bit scared about this. So whilst AI search prevents hallucinations, it reduces it. And we've made a very pluggable thing in Search API, Search AI. We connected with a thing called Search API in Drupal that a lot of people use, and we've added in AI to it, so it can connect to vector databases and you can configure things. There's another approach to it that is, rather than AI writing to the end user results, it could take a query that a person types in natural language, do stuff in the background, and let Drupal present things to the user. So how can you get AI search with no hallucinations, like zero? And there was a talk with Freely Give and Drop Solid with the EC, European Commission. So this slide was made before that, but if you go to Drupal.org, the Academy, you can get to this series of 5 talks that is leading you through how to get used to Drupal AI. And there's going to be a conference. I was actually going to post a slide about this, which I forgot to do, but there's going to be a conference in Brussels on the 29th of January. And so I will post it on Slack or the WhatsApp channel if you want to join in on that. But what we're going to do is we have these 5 training things. The next one is going to be January the 13th about no code creating AI agents. And in the contrib room, maybe we're going to be building some of that demo and that stuff together. But then after the 13th, with the last of the training videos, we're going to have a hackathon in the European Commission's buildings. So this thing here is, who's familiar with Drupal sites or even just websites in general that have this whole long list of filters along the left? Who's familiar with this? And who thinks this is a fun way of doing things? It's unpleasant. So this is a site for, it's sort of medical studies. It's not exactly studies. And they're all registered for the EU. And the people who come here will tend to be very technical. And when they search, they'll go through all of these filters and click, 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 click. So what we thought is, okay, what if we tried something like upcoming non-European clinical trials for lung cancer? What would it do? And you search for that, don't put any filters in. The first thing is Germany, Spain, United Kingdom, United States. I mean, I suppose United States isn't there, but that's not really a good answer. I didn't have it here, but actually one slide we had was if you went to Google, it also, the first thing it did was studies in Spain, and still couldn't get it right. But then we have this, and you type the same thing, and magically, the first thing is China, the second thing is United States. It's done it. So how has it done that? Well, what we've done is we built an AI agent that all it does is take your query, it can see the list of filters, and it fills those in. So it knows non-European, and it fills in all the countries that it knows are not European, and now it's giving you good answers. And we actually made it so you could show to the end user AI giving a little description of why it picked what it did. It can even do suggestions of how you can narrow results further, but that might have hallucinations. So depending on the kind of organization you are, you might not want that, but you could disable that, and behind the scenes, the end user will not need to know any difference because magically the search is just giving you an answer. And the end results is done by Drupal, no hallucinations. I have another demo, but we don't have loads of time for it. We've done some more with agentic search. I've actually personally found regularly ChatGPT web search for me is getting answers that I need that Google isn't. I tried to actually replace my Google search with ChatGPT and it didn't work because I found the main reason why I use Google is because I'm too lazy to type in URLs. So I just type in roughly what the URL is and click the first result. So that's the main purpose, is basically just URLs. And obviously ChatGPT is too slow for that. But when I'm actually doing search, I actually find Google regularly gets it wrong. And ChatGPT web search gets it better. And ChatGPT web search is actually using something like, I think it's using Bing behind the scenes. So it's not doing any clever semantic search. It's just using traditional search, but it has agents that read the results and try again maybe and see if it's relevant. So we've also explored doing agentic search, where you have search in your Drupal site, but behind the scenes you can have agents that go in and do deep research where it goes and looks through all the content and comes up with a list, presents that to Drupal, and Drupal renders it as a series of I don't know, content or articles, etc. And so you can get no hallucinations, but even more power than just the filters. And it's something you can do really powerfully with Drupal, especially because a lot of people already have their content in Drupal. So it's easy to add it to it. I think this will become actually a really good pattern for how we might do search generally. So like normally when you're doing a website for humans and you're, let's say, selling a product, you want to try and say as little as possible. You want every word to count. You want not too many things for people to see because they'll just turn off. If you do filters or tagging of anything, you again don't want too many tags. You don't want the tags to be too long because then people just get bored. Even with SEO, you need to be really careful of not having too much. You need to really make it focused. With AI search, it's the other way around. It actually benefits from rich, detailed information. It benefits from loads of it. And so I think actually a future might be that instead of using AI to write the answer in a chatbot, we'll go all out with FAQs. Every product will have every FAQ you could ever think about behind the scenes. It will have product documentation, but clearly coded sort of bits are like paragraphs linked to a certain thing. And I think we'll be able to do low hallucination AI search again, where it's a little bit more conversational. It's giving you answers from the FAQ, but those are pre-vetted human written answers. So at the moment with agentic search, we have been showing people like articles, but I think with the thing that we're going to show next, with a landing page builder, actually a good way that search will start happening is it will build you pages on the fly with just the information you need. And then eventually it won't really be building it for you, it'll be building it for other AI agents. I think AI to AI marketing is becoming a really big thing that people are thinking about and wanting to explore. If you came to the Drupal CMS thing, actually people from QED helped make that video. It was one of the first really good examples of asking AI agents to build a page, and it just made the whole thing, and you'd see them all slide in. And one of the big things that came out of this page building stuff was this context center. So one thing we found that was really powerful about building pages is we needed to actually get AI to know a lot about your organization, to know why it's doing that. Like we tried early stuff with AI agents to try and do performance optimization of a form. But one form, it gave some advice on how to make it better. But there was another form, which I think was like it's like an insurance company's form, well, no, it reminded me of telecoms companies' contact us form. And AI said loads of reasons why it was really hard to use. But the more you looked at it, you were like, yeah, that's probably the point. Because this is a massive telecom. The contact us page is going to be constant customer complaints. And I don't really want to hear that. So actually, there's going to be times when you don't optimize your page to have a good user experience. You want it to be hard to use. And so you actually need to have something that tells AI, what is your organization? And people in the community built this, the context control center, where there's a place in Drupal with a UI where you could start putting in information about your organization, what your goals are, what your purpose is, all those kind of things. And AI could choose to use it or not. And I think this is going to be really powerful. So for anyone who uses Claude Code, what we found really early on was a Claude MD file was very, very important. And so there's this vision of like the Claude MD file for your Drupal site is what the context control center is. There's a lot of debate about whether or not LLMs are truly able to reason or not. And I was with the camp that were like, this is a silly question. It doesn't matter. If it works, it works. Why do I care about reasoning? And Apple released a paper that pretty much proved that LLMs can't reason. And there's quite a lot of stuff that shows that probably the transformer model, the whole way we're building AI at the moment, will never be able to do real reasoning. It will never really reach AGI. I think we're going to see a completely new architecture of how we do AI in a lab environment that everyone talks about long before we're actually using true AGI. And I was arguing with my friend about this, who was really on the other side. He's the one who introduced me to AI, and he loves AI. He's skeptical of its reasoning capabilities, but he's built systems that have saved huge amounts of money. And I mean, it was something that he would talk about, like it was a insurance underwriting process. 128 AI agents reduced the insurance underwriting process from 3 weeks to a few hours. It works. It's good. Yet, can't reason. And the more he thought about it, because he's been interacting with all these kind of Anthropic OpenAI types who are working with these companies, really believe in their stuff. What we think is that, because they're all programmers, they spit in this phrase, I think, therefore I am. They focus too much on thinking. Programmers spend a lot of their time, or your programmers will spend a lot of their time working at processes, the steps. But the I bit of this sentence is actually very important. To actually make reasoning, you kind of need a thing that reasons. You need to have a thing, an entity that has goals and a purpose. And we found that, like with AI, you can give it's got access to all the world's information. It is the most intelligent person on the planet in terms of information. And it hasn't really made anything. It hasn't really done anything new. There's not that much science that has come out of it. Whereas you can give a toddler a tiny amount of information and they'll just start playing. They'll just start coming up with new things. And there's quite a lot of these like tests that AI have done where like, yeah, there's loads of things that if there's lots of things that's training material, AI will be a toddler. But when you start moving out of giving it problems that it hasn't already been trained in how to solve, you'll find there's a lot of things that like a 5-year-old can just do better because they're like curious, they're things, they reason, they're beings. And I think one of the things the AI companies are not thinking about, and I used to think this was just because they were building it, to get something out the door, but they actually are clever enough to think about this. I'm now thinking quite a lot of them truly believe these transformer models will reach AGI and think these things are better than they are because they're building it, but they're not using it themselves really in end user cases. And there's a lot of stuff that like these companies have released, like MCP when it first came out, that for anyone who uses AI, it was never going to work the way it looked like. And I just assumed they were doing it as like a beta version. But the more I've seen, it's like, no, they actually thought it would, and it didn't, because they're missing this. What is consciousness? What does it mean to be a thing that reasons? Well, it's more than just your thinking process. Yeah, LLMs, the way ML works is they looked at biology, looked how your brain worked, and they built computer models sort of based around how neurons connect. But they think only about the thinking process. But actually a brain, what you are, is you have goals and a purpose. You'll have a personality. You can learn things. Like LLMs, so they're stateless. Every time you fire something off to it, it comes back. The next time you're almost speaking to a completely new person. Every single thing is just a one-off thing. We have memory. We have personality. One thing we have as well of our memory is we have the power to forget things. It's actually really important. If you have a memory that remembers everything, it makes your life quite difficult. If your ability to filter out noise is a really important part of who you are. We have this conscious entity, a thing. And what I believe Drupal is, when we come to this context, is this is us building brains. This is us making a conscious entity. Because although LLMs themselves can't learn, your system can. LLMs themselves can't have memories or personalities. Your system prompt can, and your system can pick between those. And actually, when you think about it, if you're used to using AI, what you find is the thing that makes you a better AI programmer or prompt engineer, let's say you're using Claude Code, is managing Claude Code. The Claude.md file, the context. In fact, almost all the really amazing innovation is not coming from these new models. A lot of the time, these new models aren't that much. Like GPT-5 wasn't much better than 4. It's not the actual LLMs that are better. It's the tooling that helps you get better at remembering what you're doing in a way that's cheaper or more natural. And one of the evidence that these companies were not thinking about consciousness is they have billions. And the best they could come up with was a flat file called an MD file. They did all this cool stuff around Claude MD, but they did so little with the managing context. And ChatGPT itself, it has a field called memory. And one time as a joke, I asked it to speak in a Cockney accent. And now every single time I ask it, it will just randomly say mate all the time because I asked it that thing. And it also knows my son's name, which is a bit creepy. When I'm talking about something else, or randomly think I'm talking about my son, you can just go into that memory file and delete it. But with all of their money, they haven't really done much more of the conscious being stuff than just a file. And so that's what we've been doing in Drupal. The other side of it is this orchestration, these flow builders. So this is where Shibin's going to talk more about this. But actually, we have to do things like store your context. But actually, if you guide AI down a path, you don't just trust AI agents just do everything. In the early days, people tried to give access to your bank account, say, make me money. And there were a couple of stories of it working, but like mostly those fully autonomous agents never did anything. But when you guide it through a process, when you manage it towards something, you get it to have personalities, but multiple personalities for different purposes. It's kind of like we're building the being. And so it's not OpenAI you're using as an organization. It is a whole system. And that system can learn. Old machine learning models, they themselves will learn. AI models, fine-tuning, maybe it will work a little bit for small models. Mostly it doesn't. Mostly you're using the same thing. Mostly it's not learning. But the system you build can learn. And so I've got loads more slides here to go into more detail. Obviously, this one I like, which is everyone is trying to do digital ops. Every company is calling themselves an AI company in the world. And this is what I think the future should be. So I'm going to leave this slide as the last one because this, I think, is the most important thing. Drupal, that logo there, taking over the entire planet. That's our main goal. So thank you for being here. I'm super excited to spend more time with you.